Hey, good morning. It's Mark here with another morning rant. Time on deck. Hey, look, here we are, January 6th. 1 year ago, we had protesters, insurrectionists that stormed the Capitol in order to overturn the election. A duly elected incoming president. They tried to overturn this. It was not the CIA. It was not the FBI. It was not Black Lives Matter. It was not Antifa, whatever that is. It was not, it was not these other organizations. This was not the Boston Tea Party. There were no people dressed as certain other people in order to get Trump elected president. No, these was Trump supporters that stormed the Capitol. And I want you to listen to, it's going to be a little long-winded as far as the commentators, but I want you to listen to what's going on here and the backstory of what was going on.
Hey, well, tonight there are more texts. As I said at the top of the show, they come in the form of a letter. This letter was sent to Sean Hannity today from the January 6th committee, asking him to cooperate in their investigation. I'm going to read you big chunks of this letter because its contents are really something, and you will see why. Quote, the Select Committee now has information in its possession indicating that you had advanced knowledge regarding President Trump and his legal team planning for January 6th. It also appears you were expressing concerns and providing advice to the president and certain White House staff regarding that planning. You also had relevant communications while the riot was underway and in the days thereafter. The letter then says the committee has dozens of texts between Hannity, Meadows, and notably other unnamed people about Trump's efforts to contest the outcome of the election, including one Hannity sent to Meadows on December 31st, 2020. That's less than a week before the insurrection. Reading, quote, we can't lose the entire White House counsel's office. I do not see January 6th happening the way he is being told. After the 6th, he should announce he will lead the nationwide effort to reform voting integrity.
Okay. We can't lose the entire White House counsel. Why did he say that? Why did he say that? I guarantee you the White House counsel was sitting in those meetings discussing how can Trump stay in power. And again, the White House counsel does not, he is not he is not a lawyer for the president. He's a lawyer for the president's office. He's the White House counsel. He only defends the White House. He defends the presidency. He does not defend the president. I guarantee you the White House counsel was sitting in those meetings talking about how they can overturn the election. And Sean Hannity, he may have been there or he may have heard about it. So he said we cannot lose the entire White House counsel because the White House counsel, I guarantee you, was saying we're going to resign if you try this. I do not see January 6th happening the way he is being told. How is he being told? What scenario was being laid out? What was Donald Trump being briefed, and who was briefing him? What did he know, and when did he know it? And after the 6th, he should announce blah blah blah. Let's keep going. This is some crazy stuff.
Go to Florida and watch Joe mess up daily. Stay engaged. He speaks, people listen. Go get him, slugger. Now that is Sean Hannity warning Mark Meadows 1 week before the insurrection that January 6th is not going to go the way that Trump thinks it will and is being told it will, and that Trump should gracefully step aside. Which, I got a few things to say about that. He's right. You go, Sean. But also prompts the question, what did Hannity know about the plan?
Exactly.
He can't lose the White House counsel's office? Someone is looping him in. According to the letter on January 5th, the night before the riot,
January 5th,
Hannity sent a series of texts saying, quote, I'm very worried about the next 48 hours. I'm very worried about the next 48 hours. Then referencing the counting of the electoral votes and Pence pressure, White House counsel will leave.
Again, a week before the insurrection. Now what is Sean Hannity doing on his news show? I don't have those clips, but I guarantee you I can find them. What was he doing on his news show when he was texting Donald Trump's White House chief of staff saying, I'm worried about the next 48 hours and saying Pence's pressure. If you apply pressure to Pence, the White House counsel will leave. And you do not want the White House counsel to resign.
Again, man, he's well-sourced, this Sean Hannity. Message indicates that for some reason Hannity thought the White House counsel would leave. And we have reporting indicating the White House counsel had threatened to do just that. So what did Sean Hannity know? Committee also writes, quote, "It also appears from other text messages that you may have had a conversation directly with President Trump on the evening of January 5th and perhaps at other times regarding his planning for January 6th. Sean Hannity may have been talking to Donald Trump about his January 6th plans the night before it happened. What did they discuss? There was this other part in the letter that also just made my head turn. It appears that Sean Hannity may have also been talking to members of Trump's cabinet about possibly removing him from office, quoting the letter again. Later on January 6th, you texted to Meadows' press coverage relating to a potential effort by members of President Trump's cabinet to remove him from office under the 25th Amendment.
Sean Hannity wanted Donald Trump removed via the 25th Amendment. The 25th Amendment states that if the president's cabinet feels that the president is not mentally or physically able to do the job, they can petition Congress to have the president removed.
Paul, Secretaries DeVos and Chao both resigned following the president's conduct on January 6th, as did members of the president's White House staff. We would like to question you regarding any conversations you had with Mr. Meadows
Give me 1 second.
others about any effort to remove the president under the 25th Amendment. Man, let that sink in for a second. Was Sean Hannity having discussions with Trump's chief of staff and maybe others about removing Trump? Boy, you think you know a guy.
So let me stop right here and go to another report. Like I said, this is going to be a little long-winded, but I want to get this out. That's why I'm not doing too much commentary. So Sean Hannity, like I said, whether he was sitting in those meetings or whether he heard about the meetings after the fact, Sean Hannity knew what was going to happen January 6th. He may not have known about the insurrection. I'm not talking about the riot, but they were trying to quote unquote constitutionally find a way, and they were trying to find a way constitutionally to get the president, to get the vice president to not agree with what the states have already said. But there was no contention. Go back to the election of 1877. 1877 was not 2021 or 2020. There was no different slates of electors. The states had already certified their electors. So the only job Pence had was ceremonial. Open up the envelopes, read off. If there was a debate, they have a debate, but they keep moving. That's all it was. That's all it was. So, like I said, Sean Hannity either knew or he was sitting in the meetings, and he kept trying to get those guys to change the president's mind, but he wouldn't do it. Either they were too afraid to talk to him, or Donald Trump had heard what they said and was not going to listen to him. And so he was saying, hey, the White House counsel is going to leave. You do not want the White House counsel as an enemy. So not only that, but Sean Hannity was also saying, are you guys trying to remove this guy via the 25th Amendment? Because there's still 20 days between, roughly 20 days between January 1st or December 31st and January 20th. They can still remove this guy from the White House via the 25th Amendment. Let's go listen to this report.
On this night, exactly 1 year ago, probably right now, Sean Hannity was anxiously texting Donald Trump's fourth White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, saying, I'm very worried about the next 48 hours. Unfortunately for Sean Hannity and the country, Sean Hannity was sending a text to the weakest and most criminally inclined of the Trump White House Chiefs of Staff.
Hold on for a second.
Mark Meadows had already engaged in a phone call with Donald Trump to Georgia's Secretary of State, a call that was clearly criminal in nature, a violation of state and federal law on election interference. The whole country had already heard the audio tape of that criminal phone call. Sean Hannity heard the audio tape of that phone call, which is now being investigated by a grand jury in
He's talking about the Georgia
tape of that phone call to Georgia's Secretary of State. And that may be why Sean Hannity's texts to Mark Meadows are filled with fear that Donald Trump does not know what he's doing and that Mark Meadows does not know what he is doing. We know now, thanks to Bob Woodward and Robert Costa's reporting in their best-selling book Peril and other reporting, that Donald Trump and Mark Meadows already knew that the White House counsel was threatening to quit over Donald Trump's criminal attempts to change the outcome of the presidential election. On this night, exactly 1 year ago, Sean Hannity texted Mark Meadows, "Pence pressure, White House counsel will leave." Mark Meadows already knew that. Sean Hannity knew that Mark Meadows already knew that, but at this hour 1 year ago, Sean Hannity was desperately trying to get the weakest White House chief of staff in history to step up to a deranged president and do the right thing, say the right thing. It was on this day, 1 year ago, that Mike Pence told Donald Trump in the Oval Office that he was not going to violate the law and attempt to reject
I want you to hear this
electoral
conversation
votes submitted to Congress the next day. In that meeting on this evening, 1 year ago in the White House, Donald Trump told Mike Pence, "What do you think, Mike?" Trump asked. "Look, I've read this and I don't see a way to do it. We've exhausted every option. I've done everything I could and then some to find a way around this. It's simply not possible. My interpretation is no. I've met with all of these people," Pence said. "They're all on the same page. I personally believe these are the limits to what I can do. So if you have a strategy for the 6th, it really shouldn't involve me because I'm just there to open the envelope."
Again, now this is from Bob Woodward and Robert Costa's book, Peril. They have sources that said this is the conversation that happened between Mike Pence and Donald Trump. And Mike Pence is telling Trump, so we can surmise here, we can deduce from this conversation that Mike Pence was not involved in those January 6 meetings. So Mike Pence is saying, if you have a plan for January 6th, do not involve me because I'm just there to open envelopes. This is the only thing I can do. I've talked to Vice President Dan Quayle. I've talked to different legal counsels. I've talked to everybody. And this is the only thing, my job is ceremonial. This is all I can do. I can do nothing else.
You should be talking to the House and Senate. Your team should be talking to them about what kind of evidence they're going to present. "No, no, no," Trump shouted. "You don't understand, Mike. You can do this. I don't want to be your friend anymore if you don't do this."
I don't want to be your friend anymore if you don't do this. This is a 70-something-year-old man talking to a 60-something-year-old man saying, "I don't want to be your friend anymore if you don't do this."
You're not going to be sworn in on the 20th. There is not a scenario in which you can be sworn in on the 20th, Pence said. We need to figure out how to deal with it, how we want to handle it, how we want to talk about it. "You've betrayed us. I made you. You were nothing," Trump said. "Your career is over if you do this." Pence did not budge.
This is...
In a series of tweets today, Robert Costa reviewed some of the developments of this day 1 year ago that we did not know about then, including that Rudy Giuliani even wanted to go over to VP's home and give him a talking to late on 1/5. Pence eventually has dinner that night at residence with several supporters, donors. Giuliani doesn't go over, but strikingly, and not to be forgotten, Trump campaign issues a late statement saying Pence agrees with Trump position on election. Stuns Pence.
He goes out and lies.
That's the pressure on Pence that Sean
He
Hannity
goes out.
was afraid.
He goes out and lies. Even after Pence told him in the House, and Rudy Giuliani and everybody else wanted to still apply pressure to Mike Pence, Donald Trump tweets a lie, hoping that if he tweets this lie, if he says that Mike Pence agrees with him, then there's talk about, wait a minute, maybe Mike Pence is going to do something. Even though Mike Pence told Trump, I'm not doing anything but opening envelopes. Now it puts not only Mike Pence in a situation, it puts all of the senators and Republican senators and congressmen in a situation, because now they feel like, oh crap, Mike Pence may do something. So now I feel more emboldened to try to object, because I think Mike Pence is going to do something. Maybe in those contested states, they're thinking, okay, if Trump tweeted Mike Pence is going to do something, then that means I can step up and say, I reject this, I don't agree with this, and hopefully push Mike Pence into doing what he's going to do. But Mike Pence stood firm. Now I don't like Mike Pence. I don't like him at all. I don't like his policies. I don't like his face. But this is crazy. These people
afraid of. That is what Sean Hannity was advising Donald Trump not to do. Robert Costa writes, as midnight approached, people in the streets were yelling, delighted and almost euphoric about Trump taking back the election. Trump soon called Giuliani and then called Steve Bannon. He was very arrogant, Trump said of Pence. Trump's 4 words were sobering. It was Trump explaining away a deal gone bad. Pence was not going to break. If Mike Pence was arrogant, that meant Trump's push was dead. Very arrogant, Trump reported. Trump kept tweeting into the night. The January 6th committee wants to hear all about this.
Exactly. And that's all. That's all. They just want to know is what being reported in that book Peril. Is what being reported in that book Peril, is that accurate? Or how accurate is that? If it's not accurate, just say it's not accurate. If Robert Costa and Bob Woodward wrote a book that was not accurate about the conversation that Pence and Trump had, then just say that. That is not the way it happened. Rudy Giuliani, Sean Hannity, they knew something. And it was more than Steve Bannon. They all knew something. Now, Steve Bannon has been indicted because he didn't show up for his subpoena. He was subpoenaed, but he did not show up to be interviewed. So he's got to go through the legal process as far as his dereliction to show up. But he knows. All he has to do is go in there and say, I plead the fifth. If you can show up and say, I plead the fifth, but he's not trying to show up because he knows something. So this is what was going on the week prior to today, a year ago. This is what was going on in the White House. Now again, this is separate. This is separate from the insurrection. This is separate from the people storming the Capitol. This is separate. These are people in suits and ties trying to overturn a constitutionally accurate election. They were trying to overturn this election, and they were trying to use fraud as a means of getting this overturned, but they had no proof. They had no evidence. There were over 60 plus lawsuits, even about 2 that went to the Supreme Court, and Trump lost all of them except one. And the one that he won was only to get the counters to move closer to the people that were sorting the ballots. In a lot of the judges that ruled against Trump and his people trying to sue, they were Trump judges. This is getting bad, and it's getting bad. And again, there were proof. There was documents that Trump and his people, they didn't help Russia, but they tried to stop the investigation. There is proof of obstruction of justice against Trump and Russia. There is proof that Donald Trump and his people were trying to overturn the election. But do the politicians and the powers that be have the guts to put this man in prison? I'm about to hit 20. If you stayed this long, I appreciate it. like, share, subscribe. Follow your boy on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm there. Thank you guys for sticking around as long as you did. If you stayed, I appreciate it. And I will see you guys on the next one. I'm out. Y'all take care.